Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting episode of We're Gonna Have Fried Rice Tonight. Homemade. Alright, I wanted to
get
say
some of the flavor of a Chinese restaurant into it.
Yeah. And we have eggs and we have some green onions and we didn't
have for meat? What do they have for meat?
Oh, I'll have to look. So we have more to add to it than we did last time. We also have mushrooms. But anyway, what I wanted to say, because there was a comment on Facebook about how, you know, in many ways the United States was built on the backs of slaves, and I'm not going to deny it, that's for sure. But what I want to say is my mother's family. My mother's family is the only American family. My dad was from Canada, and his parents were from Europe, and I'm from Europe. My wife's from the United States, though. So I guess you could say my wife's family and my mother's family are the only American families. Anyway, my mom's family arrived in Virginia in 1632. They were originally French, but they came by way of England. And the family still lives in the same place in Virginia that they lived however many hundreds of years ago that was. And in 1775, there was a split in the family.
Oh.
What?
That was not good, was it? Split in the family.
Where the side that remained in Virginia supported the colonists, the side that moved to North Carolina supported the Crown. And the family that moved, the side of the family that moved to North Carolina is my side of the family. And guess what? The family's still in that part of North Carolina.
You know, I can't speak for my family whether or not they supported slavery. I doubt that they supported it.
No, she's from a northern family, and she's related to Lincoln.
My father considered himself Southern, though.
Oh, he did?
Yes.
Well, now, and my family had slaves, okay, but they came over here as slaves. An indentured servant is just like a nice name for a slave, okay, that's all it is. Thankfully, my family survived it. They got out. Most people did not survive indentured servitude because they wound up owing their owners, you know, generation after generation after generation. They could never pay it off.
My father was a sharecropper in southeastern Missouri. He was cotton picker. Cotton? He picked cotton even as a young child.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what my mother and uncle did too, in North Carolina. Though,
I think he started when he was about 5 years old.
Mm-hmm. As soon as you can, I mean, for those who are not country, as soon as you can get out there and work, you get out there and work.
I think he said the toe sack was bigger than he was.
Yeah. But anyway, so, and then we also have to take into account that the Southern philosophy of slavery did not originate in the South. It originated here in New Ireland, aka New England, and it gradually migrated south. So it was not a Southern innovation necessarily. It started up in this area in the Northeast and moved south.
Yeah, because there was, I can tell, my father had no slaves.
Of course your father didn't.
Well, nobody in my father's family had slaves, I think.
But anyway, so, you know, my mother's family, because my dad was from, like I said, he was from Canada, and his parents, my grandparents, were from Europe, so I can't talk about his family per se. The thing is, well, I can talk about his family because we're Irish. Do you know that the Irish continued to be slaves long after slavery ended for anybody and everybody else? The Irish continued to be slaves, at least to the Brits. You know, Australia and New Zealand were built on the backs of Irish slaves.
Thankfully, Germany never allowed themselves to fall under the reign of the British.
Yeah. Not that the British didn't try. Same in Spain and France.
But the Germans showed them what hell was.
Yeah. My wife is of German stock, by the way. Anyway, so my mom's family, they had slaves. The thing is, when there's a family reunion, guess what? The descendants of the slaves go to the family reunion. They're family. Okay? And they may very well genetically be family, too. It's like Thomas Jefferson, you know. There is Jefferson family genes in the bloodline of the slave. I forget what her name was.
I don't know her name.
But now some people would say, well, that means Jefferson slept with her. No, it doesn't. It could have been Jefferson. It could have been somebody else in his family. It didn't. Hennings, I think. It didn't have to be him. It could have been somebody else within his family that
fell over the slave.
Yeah, and
put it nicely.
Yeah. So anyway, so my mom's family, yeah, they had slaves, and they took the last name too. When they were freed, they took the last name, Cuthrell, C-U-T-H-R-E-L-L. And now let me go up to my grandparents' era. It wasn't that long ago. My grandmother was a Sunday school teacher, which she didn't get paid for. You don't get paid for teaching Sunday school. And she was a school teacher. Now, that little area in North Carolina was segregated, just like even the North had segregation. Maybe not to the extent that the South did, but it had it. Martin Luther King Jr., he said that when he went up north, people didn't care. You know, in the South, people would put up a fight from every direction for and against segregation. In the North, there was the same type of segregation, but people just accepted it.
Not so strictly enforced.
So anyway, my grandmother, when desegregation came about, and a lot of people think that when desegregation came about there were all sorts of riots, and that's just not true. You heard about the unrest, but you know, like 90% of the people in the places, there was an unrest. Where my grandmother taught school, now my grandmother, there was a peanut field with a school, a wooden building, where the black students went to school. It's not there anymore. They tore it down. But when desegregation came about, there were no riots, there were no protests, there were didn't happen. But my grandmother said she went to the school board and she told them, I will not teach a black student. Guess what? She never taught a black student, and they didn't fire her.
I'm surprised she kept her job.
Well, today you'd get fired for that. You know, but you know, oh well. And now my dad's family, we have a lot of slaves. I mean, us, the Irish. You know, I mean, I have family in Australia. I don't know if I have family in New Zealand or not, but I have family in Australia. More likely than not, they went to Van Diemen's Land as slaves. You know, they were convicts. You know, that's how they, you know, because, you know, what did it take to be a convict if you were Irish?
Not much.
Yeah, not much. Some well-connected person over in England wants your farm. Well, now you're a convict. You committed a crime. It doesn't matter that you didn't, but that's how they're going to take your land.
That's a bunch of bullshit, too.
You know, so what do? They put you on a convict ship and ship you off to Van Diemen's Land or Australia and New Zealand. And you lose everything. Don't dare try to protest it, because you try to protest it, it'll just kill you. And then, you know, the Irish came over here to the United States, and no Irish need apply. So what happened when you you segregate like that. No Irish need apply. Well, there are only a few places they can get work, right? Well, one of that is a police department. So that's why you have a lot of cops
Irish
who are Irish or of Irish stock, and because where else were they going to work? Nobody else would hire them. And they were usually some pretty tough characters too. I mean, some of these people were rebels, and I don't mean just rebel without a cause kind of rebel. I mean these were people that took up arms against the British. So so the thing is, just about every group out there has been the slaves of somebody at one point or another. If you go back far enough, I mean, I'm Celtic, and yes, there are Celts in Spain. My hometown used to be a Celtic city. It's not anymore, but it was at one time. And I'm from southern Spain. Anyway, the Galicia up north, that's the Celtic region of Spain today, but the Celts have been slaves to the Romans. We were slaves to the Romans. But the thing is, before that, we took others as slaves. So, I mean, that's why I don't like this whole blame game type of thing, because every group has either been slaves
or had slaves.
Or had slaves. You go to Africa, the African slaves. It wasn't white people going to Africa kidnapping Africans. It was
kings who sold their people into slavery.
Yeah, Africans kidnapped Africans and sold them didn't just sell them to whites, sold them to other Africans as well. Sold them to Asians probably as well. So, when people get all this
Hissy.
Yeah, it really, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, And the sad thing is, in the schools, they don't necessarily teach this, which is sad, but,
you need to tell these little brats the truth.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say, because it's just, I mean, I'm not going to get too... I mean, it bothers me that one group of people or another group of people or another group of people, oh, you oppressed us, or oh, you oppressed... Every group has oppressed every other group at one time or another. Like I said, you go back far enough, with the Celts, we had slaves, but guess what? Eventually we were enslaved. It doesn't make it right, but...
I want to inject something up, but why is it always the African Americans who scream the loudest?
Yeah, I mean, come on.
We don't scream about being the Irish being slaves, or...
And we were slaves, we're slaves well after...
By Britain.
Yeah, we were slaves well after Africans.
Scottish.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Bye.